Broadcasting from the heart of downtown Hollywood. This is SoFloRadio.com.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Rick's Show on the Radio. Welcoming my good friend and guest for today. This is such an exciting time for me here. I mean, you have no idea how happy I am to have you here. To do
Thanks,
this
Rick.
show here.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to getting Jim Hammond on my show for a couple of years now. Actually, well, the show is only a year old, but I've been watching your work on Facebook, and a lot of my friends have been telling me, you got to get this guy on the show. He's like really doing a lot of good work in Fort Lauderdale and other places as well. So welcome to the show, Mr. Jim Hammond.
Rick, great to connect with you. Thank you, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I was very pleased and honored to be invited to your arts bunker that you have down there, which is like a big gigantic workshop where we do all kind of work on puppets and all kind of different stuff. So I'm excited to talk to you about that. But first, tell us a little bit, sir. How long have you been in the area? Where are you from? Give us a little personal background, if you would.
I'm originally from a small town in upstate New York called Hoosick Falls. Now, Hoosick Falls sounds like a Dr. Seuss kind of location.
Perfect for you.
But perfect for a puppeteer.
Yeah.
I think I'm the only puppeteer they raised there. But yeah, a little town called Hoosick Falls, roughly about 5 hours north of the city. And I have always been into puppets. As a kid, I created puppet shows in my backyard out of broken sticks and rocks and stones. When I was 8 years old, we had a little repertory company in the summer where we did fairy tales. And I produced it and would hire friends in the neighborhood to be puppeteers. And I think we charged, I don't know, it sounds like it's from the old country 200 years ago. I think we charged maybe a nickel or a dime to come see it.
Wow. I think you got an entrepreneurial
totally
spirit
entrepreneurial,
here.
When you're on the government cheese as a kid, you definitely have to figure out to scrape the pennies together. But it was good.
I got to tell you, though, Jim, I mean, to pursue what you love and also try to make money at it at such an early age, I mean, something tells me that you're a pretty smart guy.
My wife loves me, but may beg to differ a little bit, and I can guarantee my mom would beg to differ. But I have been graced by having that entrepreneurial spirit. That's for sure. That's
important. Yeah. So you moved. When did you come down to Florida?
So my wife and I met in Chautauqua, which is an upstate New York summer stock company.
Your wife
out near
is
Buffalo.
Shelley,
correct. And it was right after grad school, so I got out of grad school in Connecticut. We went back to doing the gig up in New York, and we were broke. We had 2 graduate degrees, 2 undergraduate degrees to pay for. We had no bloody idea how we were going to end up paying for it. We were afraid we were going to move into Shelley's sister's attic in Phoenix, Arizona that has no air conditioning. We had no bloody idea what we were going to do.
In Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona. Yeah, hardcore. And Shelley got a call from Broward Center for the Performing Arts, and I got a call from Florida Grand Opera. This was in 2004, 2005. We moved down here. I'm sorry, it's 2004, 1994 or 1995. Okay. Then we moved up here, and she was working as a technical director at the Broward Center. I got a gig as the props master at Florida Grand Opera, and then worked into company manager for a short amount of time. And it was a great starting gig and started helping us chisel away some of that debt.
Yeah, that's great. Now, Shelley still works at the Broward Center, right?
Shelley just hit her 20th anniversary at the Broward Center. Actually, yeah, 20th anniversary at the Broward Center.
Congratulations, Shelley.
Yeah, congrats, Shelley. Thank you. She started as technical director. She kept moving up. She's now vice president of operations and the general manager of Parker Playhouse.
Awesome. Maybe we can get her on the show sometime soon. A lot to talk about with her,
Absolutely.
too. But let's stay talking to you here, because I know that we could probably go methodically through all of your endeavors here. But first of all, how did you go from the props master thing did you have a vision as to, to have this arts bunker or this puppet company all along?
Well, the puppets are part of me, in part to pay for college, and one of my high school jobs was actually working as a puppeteer at an amusement park in the Adirondacks. So I was, at 17 years old, a puppeteer. We had 25 shows a day, ranging from one show was something called Jungle Tales, which I ran around in a monkey suit and had a couple of bird puppets that I worked with. To this weird funky magic show, to a rainmaker show, but the one that I loved was called Sassy Sally. Okay, and Sassy Sally was this well-endowed female chicken puppet in a red sequin gown. And she was popped her beak out the front of the barn that overlooked the petting zoo, and it was a heckle puppet show. 17 years old, Jim back there working this little puppet, and we would 7 times a day make fun of the Wally World kids who would wander on by and make them do crazy races and make them do insane tricks and tell stupid stories, and that helped pay for undergrad.
Wow, that sounds like fun, actually.
It was crazy fun. I'm still addicted to puppets, in part because of that gig that I got at the Great Escape up in Storytown.
Now, you don't just love puppets. You went to school. I mean, you are a puppet graduate of some sort, aren't you?
Yeah. So I actually have a graduate degree in puppet design. My mom is incredibly proud of that.
Is she now?
Yeah.
Now she may be now.
Yeah, now she may be.
She's coming around.
At the time when her friends were going off and trying to be doctors and MBAs and Jim wants to go play with dolls, it's a totally different story around the water cooler at work. But yeah, I went to graduate school at University of Connecticut. It's only one of 3 places in the U.S. that you can get a graduate degree in puppet design. And right now, Rick, I am here with you instead of at UConn, because UConn is having one of the biggest puppet festivals, the biennial Puppeteer of America Festival. And my assistant, Ronnie Gerstel, is up there with several of our puppets, showing them around. Yesterday, Carol Spinney, who plays Big Bird, just was with Stranahan, one of our dog characters, so that's the reason why he's not here. But what's awesome is he's making his rounds, our little puppet, and Carol, gave us some great pointers about the puppet, and it's just a real honor to have our characters up there at an international puppet convention.
Do you have any? I think that we might have a picture of your dog character somewhere around there. If I can get our producer Anthony to find a picture of the dog character.
No.
And what's his name again? Stranahan?
Stranahan. So the story with Stranahan, I can talk a little bit about. He's named Stranahan because the founding family in Fort Lauderdale is the Stranahan family.
Of course they are, yeah.
If you visit Fort Lauderdale, you definitely want to visit the Stranahan House, which is an antique house that's over 100 years old, that's in downtown Fort Lauderdale. And we had a commission from the city of Fort Lauderdale for to actually help them work on a pitch presentation for an award that they were a finalist for. This award is called the All-America City Award. And the city of Fort Lauderdale had been trying to get this award for 52 years. It's an award of talking about civic engagement, talking about how the city takes care of the underclass, and realistically how different communities, different cultures work together. For 52 years, they didn't get it. really getting the award just meant you had to be in the top 10. So of all the cities in the United States, Fort Lauderdale never got it. City manager, 2 years ago, the city manager sent out a bunch of folks, about 70 folks from Fort Lauderdale, to go try to get this award. They didn't get it. They came in number 11.
Oh.
If they broke the top 10, they were going to take home the award. It was at that point Lee, who's city manager now, contacted his staff and said, you know what? We got to find somebody who can do it. Get the puppeteer.
Yeah?
Literally.
Awesome. Wow.
So they got the puppeteer. We wrote this story. Stranahan was the star of this story. So he was built in our studio, Puppet Network. And we took home the #1 prize for the city of Fort Lauderdale.
So, yes, Jim Hammond, definitely a hometown hero for sure. That's great. So I know that I'm dying to hear about the arts bunker.
Arts bunker.
Yeah, because you got a lot going on in there.
We got a whole lot going on.
There's like number of businesses that you're associated with, right?
Yeah. So the arts bunker came out of me working with other artists to help them find spaces to work. So I was fortunate when we first opened Puppet Network in 2009 that we found a great location right on the railroad tracks, just off of Sistrunk Boulevard, 6th Street in downtown Fort Lauderdale.
Fat Village now,
Fat
right?
Village.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I had a business partner who was a capital investor in our endeavor, Puppet Network, we're driving around all of Broward County. Where's the ideal place going to be? We're looking for a large footprint. We're looking for a lot of space where we can build large puppets and scenery and whatever else we need to do. And we saw this tiny little sign that said Fat Village Arts District with a little phone number attached to it, just pasted up on the corner of one of the buildings. And these were some buildings that needed some TLC.
Yeah,
there
back then, yeah.
was no art on the walls. There was no activity in the street. Called up the cat who owns the joint, and he said, yeah, we've got this great arts district. We've been working on it for about 10 years because he branded it in 1999 as Fat Village. And he had the ebb and flow, and the vision was there, and the concept was great, but the timing wasn't happening. Something big happened to the economy in 2007. I don't remember. That was a long time ago, but something big happened in the economy, and we're still feeling it. Not quite as bad, but we're still a lot of us are feeling it. Quite a number of folks in their 40s and 50s were laid off and looking for work. Quite a number of those folks then said, you know what, I want to do exactly what I have always wanted to do.
That's true.
Several of these folks started small businesses, little independent craft industries, and quite a number of art studios. So in 2009, when we moved in, we started reaching out to these artists, to these folks from Broward County who were artists but wanted to start arts-based business and start bringing them in, working with the folks in Fat Village to make that happen. Long story short, he was at about 15% capacity when we moved in 2009. When we moved out 4 years later, he was at over 80% capacity in the middle of one of the toughest recessions imaginable. So that's the kind of community activity that we do and we try to create.
Yeah.
That being said, so 2004 happens and the space gets smaller. So all the space that we used to have, we don't have anymore. My partner with our Florida Day of the Dead Festival, Chuck Luce and I, we decided at that point that we were going to find a different location. And one of my volunteers, great guy named Wayne, he also volunteers, not only Puppet Network, he also volunteers at the Pride Center in Wilton Manors.
Right.
And he said, maybe let's get you a conversation with the guy who runs it, Robert Boo. Robert Boo met with Chuck and I, and he said, that's exactly what we want this empty space to be. We want it to have arts activities. We want it to have kids coming in and doing workshops, and that's exactly what we were doing the entire time. So we were able to cut a deal where artists could afford, and we've been in there now. This will be our third Day of the Dead. It's branded as the Arts Bunker because within the last year we have a new partner working with us to help with the marketing and the programming components that we as artists are not always the best in the world.
No.
Sometimes we're good marketers and sometimes we fall flat on our face. We were lucky enough to have a meeting with Jay Abate from ArtServe, who's the president of ArtServe.
Right.
And Jay has always been really supportive of what we do, of our Day of the Dead festival. And she said, we're at a point in ArtServe where we're looking to expand beyond the footprint of what ArtServe is. And we pitched her the idea of what about a satellite location in Wilton Manors on the Pride Center campus. She loved it. She brought it to her board. Her board loved it. And that's where the Arts Bunker came from. So we are a collaboration of the individual artists in there, primarily Chuck Luce with Iron Forge Press and myself with Puppet Network, but also Jay Abate with ArtServe and David over there and her full team over there, who are really fantastic and big supporters of what we do.
How many different organizations are there? Because I know there's another one that you mentioned, Live Nation.
No,
not Live Nation. Sorry.
Yes, we are Live Nation.
Live Nation, right?
Yeah.
I wrote that down wrong. Sorry.
Yes. Corporate investors who are out there in the radio world. Yes, we are Live Nation. You can start buying us at $5 a share.
Yes.
Let the money pour in.
Yeah, finally. I don't know where it's been.
No, the company is called Live Animation Studios. And Live Animation Studios is a brand new company that we just started this year. Myself and 3 other partners. One partner is Marilyn Krantz, and she is a huge supporter of what we do. She's a creative personality. She actually ran for Congress at one point. She's our legal counsel and works as one of our executives to actually make sure that marketing stuff, the legal stuff, the business stuff, and really the focus on creating the highest quality content that we as creatives are putting out in the world. So we have Marilyn. Then we have Joanne Yarrow. Joanne Yarrow is a sweetheart. She is perhaps one of the most creative people in all of Miami-Dade County. She is a theater producer who is the head of she's going to kill me because I'm flaking on the name of her theater. Teatro Prometeo. Did you see
pulled
that?
it out.
Did you smell the wood burning? Teatro Prometeo, which is
I would have not forgot that one too. It's hard to pronounce.
Which is the only Spanish language theater conservatory in the entire United States. She's a phenomenal artist, phenomenal writer, playwright, and creative as well. So it's Marilyn, Joanne, and then we've got my friend Dean Lyon. Dean is an awesome cat with a long, long history working in the visual effects industry.
That's exciting.
It's really exciting. So he has, check out his IMDb. It goes on for longer than I can even, think.
Yeah, you were telling me a little bit about him. There was one little credit there that would be noteworthy.
Mention
that one.
Dean's going to yell at me for this, just the way Joanne's going to yell at me for forgetting about Prometeo. But yeah, he was one of the senior visual effects producer for all 3 Lord of the Rings films. Yeah, and he's right here in Broward County. He's an amazing talent. He's an amazing guy. He's down to earth. I love him as a friend. We just had tacos downtown Fort Lauderdale right before this interview, and he really wants to help create a true film industry and in Broward County. We've got all these little independent entities. We've got some, Canvas Films does some really awesome stuff. A lot
Florida
of them.
Hampton Table is another good organization.
Great organizations. But he wants to kind of help focus the spotlight on Broward County and what we have and figure out a way to coalesce it. So in part, Live Animation yeah, exactly. It's a big mountain to climb, but it's something that falls into the mission of Live Animation Studios. We're starting small. We're a content production company, so we currently have 32 IPs, 32 intellectual properties that are anywhere from a one sheet all the way to one property that has already 10 episodes in the can. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's in the edit suite, and we've got a bunch of creative folks who are working with us, editors, puppeteers, visual effects artists. We had a meeting last night. We're starting the South Florida Stop Animation Guild. So
That's interesting.
we're opening up a corner of our studio, the Arts Bunker, for folks to come in and actually do stop motion animation. We've got our first workshop happening with clay animation with one of our artists, Jared, who's going to be teaching a 2-day workshop at Nova Southeastern in October.
Wow, that's great. I mean,
all over the place.
What's involved in that? Stop motion, is that like you need a lot of space for that, or is it a small thing, or does it matter?
It depends on the project.
Right.
I'm not a specialist in this. We've got 3 guys at the table who are specialists in this and have done it fairly extensively. We can use a fairly small space. So what we're looking at is our camera rig is in what we used to have as a closet, but a really good sized closet that is pretty much our production closet that has all of our gear for going out on shoots, on location, has our cameras in there. We've taken all of that, pulled that into one corner, and then on the other side we have a miniature cyc wall that's about 3 feet by 4 feet. Full green screen is going in there, full lighting rig's going in there, and that's going to be our test location where we'll test out characters after we fabricated them. We might shoot a little bit of short form stuff in there, but by and large, we'll need a larger. If we're going to shoot like Caroline or Nightmare Before Christmas, you need a good sized studio for something like that because the scenery is there. But when you're working green screen, it's a different conversation.
Well, I'll tell you what, when you get that a little further developed there, I'd love to bring you and Dean back on to talk about that.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
Or anytime he's available there, I'd love to have you guys come back and talk about that because I'm interested in that technology myself.
Cool. And I can't talk to you about the technology. That's why he has that half of the brain.
Right.
I have the half of the brain where I play with clay.
Okay.
So
that's interesting. I wanted to ask you something about your the puppets before I start talking to you about the big thing coming up here in September, October, the Day of the Dead.
Yes.
And I know you sent me a video or two about that. We'll play that at the bottom here when we take a break.
Okay.
But before that, as far as like puppets go, are there different types of puppets? I mean, I know that there's, the hand puppets and then there's Muppets, but then there's a kind that I saw in your shop, these big, huge things that you bring around in parades and things like that. Do they have different categories?
So here's the bottom line of a puppet, okay? A puppet is any inanimate object brought to life for an audience, okay? So your pen here can be a puppet. This water bottle can be a puppet. It can tell the story. The ancients used puppet theater before we even had language, because when they were telling stories about the hunt, when they were telling stories about folks who were, going to attack their village, they used stones and bones and antlers to actually tell that story right at the onset of human language coming into existence. Academics within the puppet community and within the theater arts community believe that initial storytelling and that understanding this object is representative of something else was the first keen understanding of metaphor, even before cave paintings, even before language itself, where words became something else.
That's quite.
It's the core of humanity.
Yeah, it sounds like it from the way back then into the technology of the Lord of the Rings, and we're still telling stories with that type of technology. Of course, it's like gone quite a bit further since rocks and straws and all that.
Yeah. But the different styles of puppet theater, I mean, cross all gamuts. I mean, you've got Jeff Dunham doing ventriloquism.
Right.
Okay. You've got Jim Henson with the Muppets, or Sherry Lewis doing ventriloquism. There's a wide variety of artists who do that type of style of puppet theater that American audiences typically think of when they think about puppets. That's the type of puppet that is created for media, for television.
Right.
Before that, you had hand puppetry, so that would be like a little head that would sit right here, and the arms would be positioned like this. This is the type of Punch and Judy show
I remember
that you would hear.
Yeah, back in the steampunk days.
Even before that, Punch and Judy, just about 3 years ago, the first printed Punch and Judy script dates back just over 350 years old. So there, in England, there was a huge Punch and Judy birthday party about 3 or 4 years ago for his 350th year. So you got hand puppets, you've got Muppet style puppets or ventriloquist puppets, marionettes. Don't get me started on marionettes, okay?
No, I'm
all right,
sorry.
Do not get me started on marionettes.
Told me not to bring that up.
Okay, I know, but you had it in your eyes. You had it on that damn piece of paper.
I did. I wanted to talk about it.
And you wanted to talk about marionettes.
Because I like them.
All right,
I'm sorry.
I know. You and Howdy Doody had a moment in time when you were looking at the TV. It's over, okay?
I'm a conservative. I like things like that, marionettes. I'm sorry. Not really.
I have no idea what. No, it's funny. It's funny you say that because marionette. The word marionette it's a French style of puppet theater, and they were actually used for telling families and adults the story of Christmas. Okay. So marionette actually translates in French, in the original French, to Little Mary. So hence the Little Mary or the marionette. So they were used, all over Europe, primarily in France initially, but all over Europe several hundred years ago to tell these little stories, and that's where the marionette stuck. Now, my prejudice against marionettes, you promise this isn't going to go on anyone?
No, I had a couple more
no other
questions about
puppeteers
it.
are going to hear about this?
Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right.
No.
I have some great friends who are fantastic marionette artists, Pablo Cano from Miami, some other great marionette artists all around the world. But it's more mechanical than my brain can kind of work around.
See, that's why you don't like it. I thought it was a
it's
prejudice
again that side,
thing.
that two side. It's I'm not terribly competent at it, and the biggest challenge is quite often. I feel for the audience, but quite often. The marionette shows that are being put out there, those are folks who don't have that side of their brain completely understanding the mechanics of it. Because you're really creating a machine on strings.
Right.
All the puppet styles that I've talked about, the puppeteer's hands are on the puppet.
Right.
This, you're anywhere from a foot to 3 feet to 15 feet away on a long string marionette. So you really need to make sure you know what the hell you're doing. And
I guess
some do not.
I would say that I've seen some, I don't know if you would consider them publics, but like animatronic type of things where they use it in films and movies where they build dinosaurs that move and all that. I mean,
yeah, animatronics still do fall into that category. In particular, if it is a puppeteer that is manipulating it. So I went to grad school in 2003, 2004. Okay, right around that time, Jurassic Park 1 came out.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Jurassic Park 1 came out, and every puppeteer was like, "Okay, it's time to quit.
Yeah.
We've gotta go all be CPAs because puppetry is dead." Well, guess what? Puppetry is not dead because there's still artists that are incorporating live action into this world of cinema and this world of film. And in particular, because of this thing right here, and because we're so immersed into a digital world, we want this one-on-one.
Sure.
We want this connection with an object. And whether it's being shot on film or you're seeing it live, the audiences for puppetry have increased surprisingly numbers. People want them. The director of Hellboy, Guillermo del Toro.
Right.
Most of his initial effects start as live action, start as a physical object, makeup or puppetry or animatronic elements. These are the items that human audiences want to see, and human audiences are used to seeing. I mean, we've been watching film and seeing actual physical objects for so many years.
Right.
It's tough to be able to for the brain to look at. Forgive me, like a Gollum character that's all digital, or one of the characters from Avatar. It sometimes the brain doesn't click and connect the same way with that first Yoda.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that is, and I noticed that there's a trend in filmmakers, like the pioneers of all this digital representations of things have gone back to incorporating live animatronics and stuff like that.
Live animatronics, model making, models are back. I mean, we thought those would be dead forever. There's a lot of really, really hands-on stuff that's being brought back to cinema. My friend Dean, who we talked about a minute ago, for those who are listening in South Florida tonight, Dean is doing a presentation specifically about this.
Really?
And I'll give you the link. But it has they have a geek night that happens in Wynwood, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, but I'll look it up when we're on a break.
That's through O Cinema or those guys down there?
No, it's not through
Filmgate?
O Cinema. What's the
Film
club
Gate?
down there? What are some of the clubs down there?
Oh, that's
Gramps.
right.
It's at Gramps tonight.
Okay.
So Gramps tonight, Thursday night, the whatever tonight is, and you can check him out. He's doing about an hour lecture specifically on this issue.
Well, that's great. You know what? I want to play a video when we come back. We're going to take a little bit of a break here at the bottom of the hour, and we'll start talking about the Day of the Dead, because I know you're all excited and your whole team is all geared up and all that.
We're all geared up.
All right, so let's take a little bit of a break, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes on SoFloRadio.com.
Puppet Network is a fabrication firm where we design and fabricate puppets, props, set pieces, and specialty costumes for theaters and nonprofits throughout South Florida. Today's a busy day in the puppet shop. We have almost 30 volunteers coming in to help build puppets, props, and decor elements for our Day of the Dead celebration.
We try to make decor all by hand. It's very community-based. We really like that handmade feel. We just try to come up with fun projects that anyone can work on.
I help building all the puppets that we're going to use for our parade, and as well as I help during the workshop days. So I help parents and kids to, let's say, paint masks or decorate them. And at the same time, they will help us to decorate our props for our project.
The main part of the event, the centerpiece of the event, is the Skeleton Processional, which starts at Huizinga Park in downtown Fort Lauderdale and goes along Riverwalk to Revolution Live Entertainment Complex. We are looking at this year having over 2,000 people dressed up as skeletons and carrying giant puppets. Our largest puppet is Katrina puppet, who is 15 feet tall, and we'll have hopefully several hundred Katrinas carrying her along the river this year.
I think people would be surprised to see how much beauty and art we create out of the most basic products. I have to say that my favorite part is the actual fabrication of the new puppet that we add every year to the parade.
Everybody has sugar skulls on and costumes, and everyone interprets it slightly different. So you have people that are kind of more into Halloween and they don't really know much about the holiday, and so they come kind of with their concept, and then they look around and they see kind of what's going on, and then they show up the next year and it's even different and bigger and crazier.
So a lot of the iconography with Day of the Dead does incorporate the skull, but it's a different interpretation of what the skull is. Instead of the skull being somber, the skull is covered with flowers and glitter and paint, and it's a more celebratory vision of what that is rather than the heavy-handed, scarier interpretation. I grew up in the church, and I was an altar boy at many, many funerals. And growing up, when you went to the funerals that were more celebratory, that had moments of music, I distinctly remember those as a kid. And I wanted to incorporate some of those festive moments in the celebration we have today. Day of the Dead was a natural marriage of that.
I actually was an exchange student in Mexico 20 years ago, and I happened to be there for Day of the Dead. So for me, it is about celebration of life, but I think it really is a time to think about and remember your loved ones.
It's to every person out there who has lost someone. It's every grandmother who has lost her husband and wants her grandchild to experience that memory of his life.
Okay, we're back.
Hey, did you like that freeze that I did?
Yeah, I know.
I can hold. I watched that movie Mannequin, and we didn't realize, we thought that was all digital effects. It wasn't. It was real. It was kick-ass acting.
Yeah, that's not bad. We'll fix that too. So yeah, who produced that video for you there?
That was WPBT. That was their Art Loft program that was funded, I believe, in part by the Knight Foundation, who are also supporters of our organization. We love the Knight. We're very fortunate to have the Knight Foundation down here in South Florida, because they literally give cash to artists to produce really cool, interesting pieces. Wow. And the Art Loft brings a lot to the community in showcasing different kinds of arts. And we were lucky. I think that was about 2 years ago. I think that year we were at roughly about 6,000 people. And last year we hit over 10,000 people at our event.
That's like
just
one
our
of the
fifth
most,
year.
That's one of the most successful events in Fort Lauderdale, isn't it?
I think that there are a lot of awesome events in Fort Lauderdale. I would say our mantra is to keep it free and as honest as we can. So it's made by artists for everyone. Quite often you have event producers who are coming in and have the vision of the event, and there are a lot of really cool events that are created that way, but we've taken it a slightly different way, where it's a bunch of crazy artists who have the vision and say, there's nothing like this in South Florida, let's create it ourselves. And that's what we tried to do. Speaking
of that, let's go back to that idea. The Day of the Dead is a celebration. It's a Mexican holiday, right?
Throughout Latin America. Okay, so it's Day of the Dead is that merging of traditional cultures throughout the Americas. In particular, the Aztecs is how we know it, hence the connection with Mexico. And that merging of when the Europeans came to the Americas of Catholic beliefs, and that's the reason why it's on November 2nd. November 2nd is All Saints and All Souls Day. That is the moment in time when the earth in this hemisphere is starting to die, not in Florida, but in other parts of this hemisphere, is starting to die down, and the trees are dying down. Right. And metaphorically, it's an opportunity to remember that life is fleeting. That there's going to be a transition. There's that circle of life that's going to happen. And the merging of the two cultures happened to create what Day of the Dead is today.
So why did you decide that you wanted to do something like that in Fort Lauderdale, and when?
Well, it started off in 2009. Okay, so I'm working in the Arts Village. I've got a great collection of really cool, funky artists, and we're like, you know what? Let's actually do something. I wanted to create a community engagement event where artists could work side by side with parents and kids and different demographics, so we could find cats with neck tattoos working with, really conservative folks on the other side. It was we wanted something that could hit all cultures. Guess what, Rick? I want to tell you something. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
You're gonna die someday. I know.
No, not me.
I know, not you. You're going to live forever through this.
And I can take it with me, by the way, I've been told.
I would check with your finance advisor on that one.
Okay.
But the reality is that what's the universal moment? Death and taxes, okay?
Sure.
We have no control over the taxes, so it's like, you know what? Let's talk a little bit from an artistic way, from a creative way, about that elephant in the room, that moment that we're all either panicked about, or we quietly accept, or we don't want to think about. Art is very much connected to death. Quite often the process of creating the art is to live on, whether it be through that child or through that art. So a bunch of artists, we started hunting for a Day of the Dead festival that we could jump on board with. They didn't exist. Somewhere in here. Okay. Somewhere in South Florida.
Oh, okay.
In Palm Beach County, in Miami. You would think Miami, there would be a big Day of the Dead festival. Yeah. The one in Hollywood, California is 35 years old. The one in there are I think 7 little Day of the Dead, some big ones, some smaller ones in New York. South Florida did not have a cohesive, large-scale outdoor Day of the Dead event. So we said, let's give it a shot. And I got several artists on board. Some Mexican-American artists, some artists from Spanish descent, Cuban artists, myself coming from New York. We all merged together and said, let's do this. So I wrote a little grant, $2,000 grant to the Broward Cultural Division. Okay, as an individual artist, they gave it to us. They said, okay, this is kind of cool. And they gave it to us to actually build our first series of puppets. We built the first series of puppets for our skeleton processional, which is pretty much the centerpiece of the entire event.
That's what we explain what the Day of the Dead event is. Too,
okay, what our Day of the Dead event is? Okay, so we got the grant for the skeleton processional and to build the puppets for the skeleton processional back in 2009 for our skeleton processional and first Day of the Dead celebration in 2010. The first year was small. We had probably just under 100 people in the processional, which is still not bad. Yeah. Which is not bad when it's a bunch of funky artists who are just, having recycled puppets and carrying them in the street. We got some looks.
Where is it down? In downtown Fort Lauderdale?
It is in downtown Fort Lauderdale.
Okay, right on 2nd Street there?
It's on 2nd Street, but we start, it's on the Riverwalk. Oh. So we start in Huizinga Plaza, across the street from the Museum of Art. That's where we converge. We're going to have activities first thing for kids who and adults who haven't had a chance to get their makeup on. We're going to have makeup artists there. If they haven't created a costume, we're going to have art activities for them to make their costume. We have some musicians who are going to be playing on the stage. We have this great classical quartet who will be performing modern Mexican music, really cool, that has a little bit of an edge to it. A couple of other bands, and then we open up with a representative from the Mexican consulate in Miami who will be there to announce our opening. Proclamation will be read by one of our commissioners. And then we start the procession. Mariachi begins, and we have 16 different groups that will walk along the river, ranging from the Aztecas, who are dressed in traditional Aztec costume. Wow. The Catrinas, which are elegant Victorian and Edwardian women who have their full faces painted and big boas. Right. Really, really, really elegant. We have a bride and groom processional, part of the processional, where men and women who either just got married or have been married for 50 years come in, till death do us part. Right. They come in skeleton gear. Most of these are accompanied by a giant puppet that we've been building over the last 5-6 years. For that theme. One of our themes is the Katrina. One of our themes is a giant Frida Kahlo, who's 16 feet tall, the Mexican artist who it's almost as though my wife, for my last birthday, took me to Mexico City, and we visited her house, and it was realistically like going to a church. It was crazy. It was crazy. Wow. The connection she had to the culture of Mexico and to future artists was extraordinary. So we have each of these groups. We walk along the river, and we end up in front of Revolution Live complex. Right. Okay, so we got Revolution Live, we've got America's Backyard, we've got Bar Stash. They're one of our big sponsors as well. And then we have a huge stage that was just donated by Sidram Electric, who has just donated this big stage. And we have folklorico dancers, we have traditional Aztec dancers, we have mariachi. We end up with a huge mariachi concert at the very end. So the procession starts, the activities beforehand start at 4. Procession starts at 6:30, and we go all the way till our final concert happening at 10 o'clock. Wow. So it's a full day of events. We have craft activities. There are vendors, food, makeup. It's a real cultural immersion into that which scares us.
Now it's growing every year, apparently, right?
Yeah. Year one we had under 100 in the procession. Last year we had almost 3,000 in the procession.
Wow.
Almost 3,000.
That's just in the procession.
Just in the procession. Year one, we had just under 750 people in all of our events. Last year, we had over 11,000 in all of our art activities, events, the day of. It was pretty amazing.
Now, you were telling me when I saw you in the studio, as I noticed that you had a big animal puppet, a big gigantic dog, and you were telling me a little bit of a personal thing about how, it's not just a big fun event where you get to dress up like a skeleton. It's really you're honoring somebody who's passed.
That's the bottom line.
Right?
The bottom line with this event is while we use playful cultural aesthetic, while we use makeup and costume, and a lot of people are confused with Halloween with this. This is very different from Halloween. The core of this is to bring community together to remember those who we've lost. So that little thing where I was picking on you a minute ago, not only you, but everyone around us will eventually pass.
What?
I know. And I don't want to tell you there's no Santa Claus either.
This is the radio. You're going to start freaking people out.
I know.
I don't know if they're prepared.
This is not War of the Worlds. Hopefully, they're a little more savvy than back then.
I doubt it, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, okay. But yeah, the reality of the event deals with. I'll give you a couple of symbols, or a couple of moments that have happened over the last few years. One of the most important parts of Day of the Dead tradition is something that is called in Mexico the ofrenda. And what the ofrenda is, it's a traditional remembrance altar, more or less. And people who have lost friends or family are able to, at the top of this ofrenda, put a photo of that person who they lost, and then artifacts around it that reminds them of them. Uncle Bill used to smoke a pipe. He passed away last year. You put the pipe there. Aunt Joan really, really loved Diet Coke. Oh my gosh, so addicted to Diet Coke. So you put all the way around her ofrenda these little Diet Coke cans. Whatever it may be that connects to that person, the idea, the symbolism that happens is it is believed that the doorway between the world of the living and the world of the dead opens up on this one special day. And this isn't a zombie experience.
Right.
This is a moment in time when you can embrace those who you've lost. You can have a meal with those who you've lost. You can dance with those who you've lost. That's really what Day of the Dead is in its core all about.
Well, I was struck, it was a year or so ago, before we actually met. We were friends on Facebook.
Oh, the Facebook.
And one of your beloved animals passed away. It was a dog or something.
Yeah.
And I don't really make a lot of posts about that, but there was something about what you posted there really touched me, because I know a lot of us have friends with companionships with our animals that surpass human relationships, just with the understanding and all that. And when your dog passed away, I just had to say something that, to empathize with what you were talking about. And then I noticed that you had you incorporated that in the parade as well. So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Thank you for
bringing
that.
you down.
Yeah.
And all
No.
that?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing me down. You jerk. No.
Here I thought there was a.
No. It's good. No, it's
I
good.
know.
No, it's good. And that's realistically, again, what this is about.
Yeah.
Is it helps you with the healing and the understanding of that
Sure.
circle of life. My wife and I were lucky enough to have our dogs for about 13, almost 14 years. And we lost all three of them within a matter of about a year.
Oh.
And it was weird. We don't have kids. We love kids. We don't want them living in our house.
Yeah.
But
eating at our restaurants. No, sorry about that.
but love working with kids. Love teaching
Sure
kids.
you do.
But in my home, my pets are my kids. My pets fill that part of my heart that needs that complete love when I come home. And same thing with my wife. When we lost all three of our kids, it left a hole in our heart.
Sure.
And while it's not the core of the traditional Mexican interpretation of Day of the Dead, we're kind of shifting it to our own South Florida experience.
Sure,
There
why
were
not?
several other artists who lost pets, dogs, cats. My dear friend Sonia lost her two beautiful, beautiful little dogs, and she's one of our lead artists. Our artist Ronnie lost one of her dogs just a couple years before, and we decided, you know what? Let's put this energy into something helpful. We built this giant dog and this giant cat skeleton. You can see all over our Facebook at this point because we're so proud of it. And we created these large puppets to walk in the procession. So now the kids area, the Los Angelitos area of the procession is now headed by this large cat and this large dog, Paco and Taco.
Paco and Taco.
And Paco and
Perfect.
Taco are the cat and dog. And when they're actually up on the harness, they're just about 14 feet tall.
And how many people does it take for one of those animals?
One of those animals is only a three-person puppet. There's one in the front, one in the back, and then the last we usually have a kid who's wagging the tail during the
perfect.
procession. So yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. No, that's great. Now, exactly when is it November 2nd? Is that when you have the Day of the Dead?
The big day is
celebration?
November 2nd.
Okay.
That is a Monday
huh?
this year. So staying focused on the traditional day, which is always November 2nd. From year one, we've always had it on November 2nd.
Okay. You don't do it on the weekend because,
Here's the thing. I think I mentioned that I'm not in this for the money. I'm in
Right.
this for the community engagement. I'm in this to help the kids who have lost their family. I'm in it for the friends who have lost a pet or a child.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about.
Sure it is.
And paying homage to the actual tradition. It's Christmas is on the 25th, July 4th is on the 4th, New Year's Day is on the 1st.
Right.
Day of the Dead is on the 2nd. So.
Well, we're looking forward to that. Now, and you're saying that you're already starting to get geared up for it.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Or-
Yeah. This year is bigger than ever. So, part of the community engagement component in creating Day of the Dead is we have a series of workshops, a crazy large number of workshops. So you can learn totally free, sponsored by the Broward Cultural Division and some of the individual artists. You can learn Azteca dance. You can learn folklorico dance or mask making and costume making. You can learn about clay animation skeleton creations of videos. You can learn about giant skeleton puppet making. There's also something called papel picado that you see quite often in town squares throughout Mexico and throughout Latin America, which are little paper flags that decay. We have an artist, Sonia, who I mentioned before. She's an artist and designer who's creating that. We have a brand new project with an artist who's creating paper mache floats, and we're working with the city of Fort Lauderdale to actually expand it beyond Day of the Dead and begin adding it to some of the other festivals to make even funkier, cooler floats at some of the, rather than the usual suspects of floats that you quite often see at the downtown events.
And this all happens on just that one day, or no?
All the workshops. The first workshop is going to be our Ofrenda workshop with Trash to Treasure and Tara and Lewis, who are our lead instructors for the Ofrenda workshop. That is, I believe, the 24th of September. So that's our first event.
Yeah.
A month and a couple of weeks in advance. Then we open at the Historical Society our large ofrenda exhibit. So anyone out there who wants to create an ofrenda and wants to memorialize those, the Historical Center in the History Center in downtown Fort Lauderdale has opened up their doors to us for the entire month of October to showcase those altars of remembrance, to showcase those ofrendas. So if you have somebody you want to tell the story of, Rick, I hope to see you there.
Well, that sounds like a great opportunity for people to get together and let's say we wanted to honor a friend of ours or something that passed away, and we could, get together, make this ofrenda be part of the thing, and have some kind of communication with each other.
Absolutely. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, or it could be a musician who you just know and love.
Well, man, I think we learned quite a bit about Jim Hammond today and the Day of the Dead, and I think there's a whole bunch of other things that we could discuss So why don't you come back to Rick's Show on the radio sometime soon, and let's bring Dean with you or Shelly, and we'll talk about how the event is going on, maybe sometime before November.
Okay, cool. Rick,
right.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll come back and do that, right?
No, maybe not tomorrow, but oh yeah. Okay, yes. So I'll tell you, I want to say thank you very much. We're going to go out here. We got one more video that shows the Day of the Dead celebration that everybody's looking forward to, one of the best events in Fort Lauderdale, and wish you all the best and congratulations on all the success. And we'll have you back on the show sometime, everybody. It's Jim Hammond, and this is Rick's Show on the radio, and we're just going to go ahead and play that video, and we'll see you guys next week, all right?
Today and tonight we're celebrating an Aztec Mexican festival and Dia de los Muertos, which is Day of the Dead.
It's a Catholic holiday, but in Mexico they celebrate it by face painting and lots of flowers. If it's in Europe, they celebrate it different by lighting candles and praying at the graves.
Part of the role of Riverwalk is to activate downtown, and this is just another kind of activation. And you can tell by the number of people here tonight, it's well received.
This is what Fort Lauderdale is all about, bringing young people together, finding ways to draw different people from different cultures, and I think we've succeeded. So this has been a great thing.
For us, it is the end of Halloween festivities for us. We've been partying pretty much all week, and this is the final one. And the parade through downtown, and now here to the park, to the central area. And it's just our day of celebrating the wonderful holiday of Halloween.
You know, as Fort Lauderdale continues to grow as a destination, and we are a melting pot of all cultures, and this is a cultural event. It allows us to just celebrate another culture in town.
We started at the Heisinger Plaza in front of the museum, and we walked through our beautiful Riverwalk area, through the historic district, and now we're in front of the Revolution Live Plaza, and there are hundreds and hundreds of people milling around. The parade is still happening. The puppets, the people, everybody's gotten into this. It's amazing.
There are food trucks, there's an indie bazaar, there's mariachi music, there's food, there's dance, culture. Earlier today there was skull making, face painting, studies, Latin American studies. It's been a whole day of cultural events.
Party and drink and have fun and take lots of pictures.
That's right.
People are always looking for something unique and different to do. This isn't an everyday event. It's a spectacle.
This isn't your Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade, but it's our own brand of fun and excitement.
You're listening to SoFloRadio.com.